Are you also getting scared and sweaty and crazy anxious when you have to think about electrics on a boat? Well, you might not, but I definitely was when I was trying to figure out how the boat works and how we can be self-sustainable. From the moment we decided to, or we made the best decision of our life, to buy a boat, namely, till now, there has been quite some research that we have done. We read loads of books, we watched many vlogs, and all do it yourself. Basically, educating, and do it ourselves. So, today I want to talk with you guys about how we power Mutiny up. How we get juice to use our appliances. So about the electric system we have on board and more particular how it all works. We have 4 ways that we power Mutiny. Number 1 would be, as in every house and in many systems on land, 220. Second one is the engine, which also can charge our batteries. Third one would be solar, and the fourth would be wind generator. And oh, I forget one, we also have loads of power banks, which we power up some devices. So what is important for sailors? Sailing and anchoring. In order to do those two, we need alternative sources of energy. That would be solars, wind generator, and there's also hydropower, but let's not go into that now. What we don't need or what we don't want is to moor up on a quay or on a pontoon where there is electricity available and just basically plug the boat into electricity on 220, that is. That's a no-go. Then the second thing we don't want to do is use the engine a lot because it's a sailboat and we want to use the sails. So the engine would be a second thing which we don't want to charge our batteries with. Let's go to the batteries. It's pretty a good battery compartment. I've seen other ones and this is quite good, trust me. So number 1, number 2, number 3. These are 3 deep cycled batteries and each is 100 amp hour, which is a total of 300 amps for our domestic system. Our domestic system would be separated from the engine. For the engine, we have another battery, and that is just a lead acid battery, which you can see over there. So it's a different type as our household batteries. Now, before we go any further, I just want to explain the difference between AC, DC, yeah! No, just kidding. So DC would be direct current and AC would be alternating current, which you have in houses and stuff. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about what's relevant for us on the boat. DC, direct current. If you want to use an analogy, you can think about a water hose. So, hose on the one end, you turn open the valve and the water goes from one end to the other end. That is current, which is also running through your wires. And depending on how much current is going through your wires, you need to think about thickness. And also voltage, of course, would be the pressure of the water. So if you open up the valve really hard, you have a lot of pressure and that will be the voltage. But the water the flow of water, that would be your current. And those two are very important. With those two, we can calculate watt hours. Yes.
Nice.
So, hello. Next, we have watt, wattage. What is that? Well, wattage is power. The amount of power, for example, that something uses, an appliance. For example, our fridge is 42 watts. It can also be power that comes in from the solars. And thirdly, batteries also store power. So you can have, regarding the solar panels, you can have a solar panel, but you also need a battery to store the energy that is coming in from the sun, or also from our wind generator, for example. That power goes to the batteries through a regulator, and that charges them, and that makes us able to use loads. Now, let's go back to the batteries. You guys ready for some math? So, we got 3 batteries. Each is 100 amp hour. 3 batteries is 300 amp hour. So, in order to calculate how much we can use of that, we need to think about what current we're using. Like I said before, we're using direct current, which goes from plus to minus. And we have a 12-volt system. So if we take the amperage of the batteries, 300, and we multiply it by 12, so we multiply the current by the voltage, which gives us watt. So, and it gives us watt hour, because it also, the current is calculated in amp hour. So 300 multiplied by 12 would be 3600 watt hour. So in order to use that, we need to... So before we go any further, we need to know that there are different types of batteries. We have lead acid batteries, we have AGMs, and we have deep cycled batteries. For our particular case on our boat, we do have the deep cycled batteries. This means they can be discharged quite heavily and they won't be damaged. If you would do the same with lead acid batteries, they would damage every time you get them to less than 75%. So that will just decrease the battery life. Now in our case, we can deplete the batteries a lot, until 50%. But because we don't want to do that, we just try to keep them on 75% in order for us to make the battery life longer. For the 3600 watt we have, we can only use 25%. So 25% of 3600 is 900 watt. This is all watt. So we got 900 watt we can use. That's it for the batteries. Now let's have a look at the solars. So we got 3 solars. This is number 1. I'll show you. And this one is 150 watt. Then we go to port. We have a small one, 40 watt. And also, if we continue starboard, we have another 40 watt. Now, in order to calculate how much a solar is, in case you don't know, you can just flip it, as with most devices and stuff. It's written on the back of it. So, for example, on this one, you can see here are the specifics. And this one says VMP voltage and IMP current. The voltage is 17.82 volt. The current is 8.42 amp. Now, if you multiply those, guess what you get? You get 150 watt. Exactly true. Now, so we know about the batteries, that we can only use 25% of them. We know how much wattage our solar panels are. What is the next step? As you could have seen, or as I just said outside, let me just have a tiny look in here. The solar panels are 17.82 volt. Now you might wonder, that is quite a lot. That is more than a 12 volt that my battery should have. And batteries can also, when they charge, have a higher voltage, but not higher than 14.4. And 17 is way higher than 14.4. That is why we need a regulator. What is a charge controller? Well, a charge controller makes sure that the solar panel don't put too much power into the batteries. Because if there's a voltage higher than 14.4, it might fry the batteries and they'll die. So let me show you. We have 3 solar panels, 1 big one and 2 small ones. For the big one, the 150 watt, we have this white one, sorry. And that is this one. And as you can see, it's 30 amps. Now, our solar 150 is only 8.92 amps current. But having a bigger regulator is always a wise decision, because you never know, maybe you want more solar in a few years, or you get a bit older, you want some more comfort, which is happening already with us. But yeah, anything you want. Now, here is the other one, charge controller, and this is one for the 40 watt solar panel, and that goes straight to the engine. Then we have this little one, which is exactly the same, but that goes to the domestics. So with these two, we charge our domestic batteries, and with this one, the engine battery. That is it about the charge controllers. So, to charge our batteries, which are 900 watt hours, by using our 230 watt solar panels, it would take us 3.91 hours. But that would be in ideal conditions, when the sun is shining and it's hot and it's nice and all the maximum output is going into the batteries. Well, that doesn't always happen. And also, typically, the output of the solars is only 70% of their value. So instead of 230 watts, we're gonna multiply that by 0.7. This gives us 70% of 230, which is 161 watt. So 161 watt. That we divide that again by 900 watt hour. And then, more realistically, instead of 3.91 hours, it would take us 5.59 hours to charge the batteries. That sounds more like it, doesn't it? So we have the batteries, we have the solars, and we have to know how much power we can have from the solars and how much power we can use. Now, to make that all a bit more logical, I'll give you a few numbers and I'll show you my little notes. So I made a column, as you can see, and this is a load calculation method, which means we have the continuous loads, which is column A, and we have column B, the intermittent loads. So we're not using them all the time. Of course, I have used high numbers, because it's better to calculate too much than too little, so you know how much batteries you need or how much amp hour. Now, for example, the first one I have are the nav lights, and that would be like 0.83 amp multiplied by 8. So that is the time I will use that load for. Well, I've done the same for the radar, the radio. So the radar would be 2.5 amp for 3 hours, because you won't use it all the time. The radio VHF would be 1 amp for 8 hours. The wind indicator, the wind speed is only like 0.12 amp. GPS is 0.41 amp. Refrigerator, autopilot, well, you get the point. We got also the dead sounder, the AIS, and the fish finder. These are all based on 24 hours, so I think we'll use the EIS continuously because it's only 0.043 amps, and it's of course very handy to have. So the total, we come back to that later, but first we go to column B, which is the intermittent load, and we would have the cabin lights, the laptop 1, laptop 2, tablet, 2 phones, our fresh water pump, which would be 10 amps, but it only goes, I think, twice a day, sometimes not. So you can see, you try to calculate how much it uses. Then we got a windlass, the bilge pump, a little washing machine, which is for the future because we don't have it yet. We have got the Navtex and the GoPro, and altogether that would be 65. Now, if you have one load, for example, a windlass, which is 80 amp, you could take that 80 amp. So whichever is bigger, the total amount of this column are the biggest load, that one you calculate. So we got 65.87 here, and then with this total, it all comes down to 137.18 amps. Now you might say, 137.18 amps, that is way more than 25% of our batteries, because 25% of 3 batteries of 100 amp would be 75, so we would only be using 75, and that is almost double. So that would mean that we are depleting our batteries still 50%, which will make their lifespan way shorter. But because, like I said before, we take big numbers to calculate too much, preferably instead of too less. And also, while you in the daytime, the solars are charging, and they give you energy. So which means the battery will always stay topped up. And regarding that, you have 2 charge controllers. You have MPPT controller and a PWM. Now, the difference between those two is the PMW will keep your batteries on a floating charge, and the MPPT will actually give you more. And if he has too much for the batteries, he will automatically turn that power into extra amps that you could use. So basically, it's a very smart charger, and luckily we're lucky to have those two, which is brilliant because we can have lots of loads together, and really works well for us. Yeah. Now, you might wonder what happens at nighttime, because there's no sun and it might not be windy, so there's nothing coming in, which is very true. But for those circumstances, we have power banks. So the power banks we have is, for example, this one, which is also solar, and it is for 1000 milliamp. Our phone would be 2.9, so it won't charge the phone fully, but it's handy to have in case you need to charge something quickly. Then the next one we have is quite a bigger one, and that is 16,000 milliamp. So you can charge your phone. For example, my phone is 4 milliamp. That would take, I could charge my phone 4 times with this one when it's fully charged. And next to that we have Waka Waka, which is amazing. It also has a solar panel. It has a little flashlight as well if you push the button, and it has 2500 milliamps. That is it. That is how our system works, and how much power we have, and the appliances we have. Simple as that. So, if you like our videos, please push the like button and subscribe. And also, did you know that you can support us for as little as the price of a coffee on Patreon? That's it. So if you like our videos, please do it. Bye!